We've just heard the first two movements of the Beethoven Piano Concerto number 2, and I think that was a recording with Michael Roll.
Hi.
Effie, you're here. I'm just saying, because I seem to remember that I put it there, but as I don't have access to the CDs anymore, we will rely on my memory for what's been put in. Anyway, it's now almost 22:01. Very warm welcome if you've just joined me, Saskia Constantinou. Yes, we're also live on Facebook from my page, Saskia Constantinou, and you can hear the bubbly voice of Effie Xantho. In the studio here with me. Every time I see you, I'm very happy to see you, but I realize, another month has gone by.
Time flies.
Yes, when you're having fun.
Hopefully.
We've got good news to begin with.
Well, let me start with the perfect news, the fact that we actually see some sunshine as well.
Yes.
And I think that it's really picking up our spirits one way or another with everything else that is happening right now on our little part of the world and at an international level. No, but seriously, I actually asked you to start with this because I want us to feel that we have a win.
Yes.
Because of all the demonstrations and activity from local residents, environmental organizations, even political parties, not just the Greens, but various political parties came out and said that it would be a shame to destroy the Ligibos forest to build a quarry in it. We actually have a decision from our government that says that they're going to postpone the decision on what to do with the quarry for 2 years, which is, it's a small win. It's not like we won a war, but we won a battle, and it's very important.
Yes, and I think even more important is that actually everybody was united.
Yes.
That sends a very strong message that it actually is possible.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Usually when you have the locals coming together, and it's not about, either you've got for and against, and it's like a big separation of the people, but everybody was united. There was almost nobody that was in favor of the quarries. Even people that maybe would have benefited from such a quarry, like, from a job or incoming traffic, for their own stores or whatever. There wasn't a slimmer of any sort of support towards this. So that really helped. But it also helped that information came out in a timely fashion. And I have to tell you that I felt that the government had not been prepared to give adequate answers onto why they would decide to even fathom the idea of destroying a pristine forest just to create a quarry. And without the necessary arguments, they couldn't continue with the project for now. But I have to stress that it's only a 2-year postponement, so we don't know what's going to happen later. So people need to keep their fingers crossed.
Yes.
Huge thanks to the people that set up the web page, the Facebook page for the SOS de Ligibos Forest.
Bravo,
that's Yvonne Georgiado and Andri Loizido. We need volunteers. We need people.
We need people like that
Yes.
who actually take the initiative. They give of their time, of their energy, of their effort, because I know that there was a lot of effort that went into that from Yvonne.
And I have to tell you that, at the end of the day, when I'm talking about stuff, people look at me and they're like, oh, you're a professional activist or you're a professional politician. So it's very different. You can't engage people in the same way. When you have grassroots movements, this is what makes it work. Having key people that can really, keep it together. They can focus on specific tasks. They can allocate things that need to be done. And it was very important that Yvonne and Andrew really took this initiative and helped people, and made it very visual and very real for them.
Yes.
The petition just went sky high in like 3 days alone, just from the networking that they were continuously doing. And this is what we need to have done in various other situations. Like, for instance, on Friday morning, on the 6th of March, we're going to have a demonstration from the children and the residents of Pirga village. I want to remind you that it's the area close to Stavrovouni Monastery that are trying to prevent the facilities that create asphalt to be installed under the monastery. Again, in an area that is quite dense forest. Although in that situation we have this problem where it's the specific area where they want to put the facilities. It's already a quarry. it's already a destroyed, devastated piece of land. But I insist on it's a piece of land. It's not the whole terrain. If they actually bring in facilities to create the asphalt, you're bringing in basically an industrial facility, or you're bringing an industrial situation that is going to devastate the surrounding environment. It's going to really degrade the quality of the air for the people.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact that they already have problems with the trucks coming in. Thank you so much. With all the trucks coming in, with there's going to be increased activity. And to be totally honest, I never really realized who on earth thought that it was a great idea to put such a quarry underneath the oldest monastery of the island. I mean, the Stavrovouni Monastery is really a remarkable architectural design, and
Yes.
it's been there for ages. And right now, they already have cracks in their walls because of the quarrying, because of the constant use of munitions to be able to do their job correctly. If they bring in the asphalt as well, I think that they're basically trying to kick away the residents of the monastery. Now, I know people that might not be interested in religion itself, but the tradition and the cultural value
Yes.
of a monastery that has been there since the 12th century after Christ is important as a cultural value.
course,
I mean, it
of
has
course.
nothing to do with whatever religion or what you believe in. And also on Saturday, we have a demonstration from the residents of Dali, Lacha, Yeri and Tseri area for the other asphalt factories. This time they're doing it in front of the factory in Tseri, because there's 3 factories in the area that are really devastating their quality of air and their health. And they're rotating the demonstrations around the 3 factories. They're trying to demonstrate that basically it's an equal opportunity situation.
Yes.
It's not about one industrialist, but it's the situation where you have residents that are enclaved between heavy industrial activity.
And most important for everybody to actually get out there, it does work. It does actually work.
Yes.
This motivation, as you said.
We
do you
already,
yes.
just to finish on
Yes,
this, we already have a promise, because it is quite vague, but there is a promise that efforts are being made to relocate these factories. The problem is always going to be, of course, the money, but we want to see our government actually starting to look strategically at quality of air. Again, today we had news items in newspapers and electronic newsletters that are stressing that people are losing their life due to the bad quality of air on the island. It's estimated that we might be losing up to 3 years of our lives because of the bad quality. And there are, of course, people that are already severely damaged from other maybe perhaps illnesses. So the bad quality of air is degrading their health faster because they're already susceptible to whatever problems.
We won't even go into the discussion of bad air quality in the buildings.
Well, that's a separate thing. I'm talking about industrial,
yes.
About pollution due to mobility.
But that air does come
Yes.
into buildings as well. It goes into
course.
the air conditioning systems,
course.
and if they're not cleaned as well. And
It's just that when you talk about internal air quality, you also have to take into account the activities that you have within the enclosed spaces.
Of course.
And what kind of material, like cleaning material you're using. It's a really good discussion to have at some point, actually. I'd love to have
with
that.
the Cyprus Institute, they have a very high quality department there to discuss air quality.
High quality facilities and people.
Yes,
really
and
good
people,
people working
yes.
on this. But going back to what's going on with the factories, they have a promise that there will be a reallocation of these heavy industrial facilities. But we really need to see strategically where we're going to be placing such heavy industries. And this basically has to do with simple facts, with simple data. You have to map down which are the areas that geologically can support such activities. You have to lock them down for such activities for the next 50 years. You have to take into account your roadworks, your ports, your airports, because material that is coming and going needs to be transported one way or another. And that's how you find where you're going to relocate them.
This is what I don't understand. Cyprus is like a dot on the map. How difficult is it to take a map of Cyprus today, tomorrow, next week, and say, this is where we're going to do this. This is where we're going to do that. This is where water can run. This is where it can't run. This is where we're going to have an environmental village. This is what...
Which is what you would do if you were a private company, correct? I mean, if you had a piece of land, if you had a property.
Not even a private person, just someone with a little foresight into where, and map out the entire region that we have and where it's going to go. It doesn't mean that it's going to definitely happen, but at least map it out so that you've got somewhere.
No, this is about planning. This is about forethought. This is about making sure that you're taking into account environmental impact, health impact, finances. Because if I'm
surely the whole island should just be designated like that. How difficult is it?
No, it isn't difficult. I think that at the end of the day, you have private interests that are there's going to be a clash. Like, for instance, right now, you have specific areas that are already industrial. The mere fact that private interests were allowed to build private homes next to industrial areas is mind-boggling for me.
Yes.
I don't understand how this is happening. Every single city in the world tries to plan out where they're going to have their industrial area, where they're going to have their urban area, their rural areas. They safeguard the protected environmental areas. You lock them down and you safeguard them. I mean, okay, you've got Trump right now that is trying to open up national parks for quarrying and for exploration for fossil fuels, but I think that's just a blip on the map. It's not going to go forever. No. And you've got a really weird situation happening right now in the US. But what is orthological for somebody to do is to sit down and see what availability you have. Like, if I was a company and I was trying to map out what my strategy is going to be for the next 20 years so that I still exist, so that I can still pay my employees, so that I can still have some sort of financial profit out of this whole thing, I would put some forethought in it. Right now, our government, even since 1960, so many years already existing, it doesn't seem to be putting any forethought on what it's going to do next, on what the plan should be. And we get this letter from the Commission that basically says, you know what, you're not reaching your targets. Not even the 2030 targets can be reached the way that you're going, with your pace, with the lack of infrastructure, with the lack of legislative changes that need to be done.
Have you got a plan? Has anybody, you as in the Green Party, have you actually taken this exercise and mapped it out with your vision of what could be done?
This is not something that a political party can do. We're talking about the resources of the whole island. What we have done
But then present it.
No, look, if you want, this has to be done properly. This is not about me making, visualizing what I would like to happen. Because we can do that. I mean, we're talking with people on the ground everywhere, and if it was about what I would love to see, or what is ideally something that I would like to see, we have ideas, but that's not how this works. This has to be done properly. You have to take into account the geology, the geomorphology. You have to take into account the existing infrastructure on roadworks and future infrastructure on roadworks. You have to take into account where you're going as an economy. Now, what we're coming and saying, we're taking various sectors and we're making these analysis on what can be done so that you can have green development, what you can do to ensure that you have sustainable activities in business and in industry. But this is only a part of it.
I was going to say, I think that comes after the first plan.
Well, it's
but we don't
seem
to have that.
If you decide that you're going to be facilitating your wine industry, for instance, and this is a decision that obviously you have to, lock down the areas that are really good for winemaking. You're wondering which comes first. Well, the way that we're going now, we're first deciding what the priorities should be, like what are the niche markets that we can work on, and then they backtrack towards how do I protect this. 20 years ago, we were telling our wine producers
we should have a label made in.
We were telling our wine producers to take out the Marathasa vineyards, to take out the local varieties of wine because they weren't sellable to Europe. And we were telling them to plant the varieties that you can make Cabernet Sauvignon, that you can make Shiraz. We were trying to sell French wines as Cypriots. Let me just put it in a blunt way,
Yes.
which doesn't make any sense. Now, right now, the last 10 years, you've got individuals like private enterprise coming through and promoting their niche wines that are basically area protected. They've got geographical protection within the EU. It's a very different taste than what you would get with the mass production that is happening in big European countries. And you're trying to sell that. And that makes sense because you're a niche market. You're a small island. The capacity towards creating anything that you're selling, that you're exporting, is not infinite.
Is this why the winemakers were crying and saying that there are more imports than exports?
Well, yes, because at some point they couldn't. If you're trying to reproduce, and there was a big time where people really weren't producing their own varieties because they had to wait for the new varieties to take plant, and they lost their market capability. But this is just an example of how various things have been happening through the years. When we're discussing about the benefits of having a cyclical industry in how we deal with our waste disposal, I don't have the money or the resources to be able to make a pan-Cyprian plan or where you can allocate the resources and how you're going to ensure that you can reproduce these. But there is a data out there, and there's all the academic research that shows that if you're reusing any of your waste, if you're creating money out of things that you were just throwing away, then there is a benefit to be had. I don't need to do the groundwork.
No, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You actually just need to look elsewhere. And I have to say, having just come back from the Netherlands, that was something, of course, I always take note of things that are happening in the environment in other countries. Mm-hmm. There wasn't one dead dog. There wasn't any rubbish. There wasn't a sign of carnival. Not a sign of carnival.
You mean after the aftermath of the carnival? Yes, was not the
it wasn't visible all over the
photos
ground.
that we got from Limassol or Arlanja.
I didn't see any couches out in the fields. There were only fields.
Yes.
Planted fields.
Clean fields.
Clean fields and some mud and some rain. A lot of rain. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Saskia, we have to be honest. Because I've participated in many conventions about how we're going to promote environmental awareness, one of the first key things that we hear from countries that have made it, that have reached the cultural level that you're describing right now, is that we weren't always like that. We started off with huge fines. We started out with deciding what we want to happen and then implementing it. Like the decision is that you need to be recycling at the source because it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yes.
You can't just dump everything into one garbage bag and then expect it to be sorted.
No, everybody went and sorted their own garbage.
And you don't get a restaurant.
See them, and they don't throw the things.
And you don't get a restaurant owner saying, oh, this is poppycock, I can't waste my employees' time to do this.
No.
Which doesn't make sense to me because it actually saves the person money if they're actually doing it correctly. Anyway, the point is that they decided that there wasn't enough time to try and just do a cultural change, how can I say, voluntarily. They decided that this is a system, this is how it's going to work out. Whoever doesn't comply gets a fine, period.
We can see that with what's happened with the carnival litter, because I have to keep on time and we've got so much to discuss today. We had hundreds of balloons released, which will obviously return as waste because they didn't dissipate in the air on being released. We had beer, spray cans, plastic bottles, snack wrappers. The president of the Friends of the Earth, Anastasia Korai, also said that there were insufficient bins.
Of course.
And I want to ask about, when we talk about responsibility, what about the polluter pays or extended producer responsibility regarding the collection of the spray cans.
Yeah, it's not just the spray cans. I mean, this is a problem that we have in general. I mean, right now you only have green dots supposedly being the representative of the polluter pays part of the legislation. It's not being implemented correctly.
Right.
I have many
So did that
industries.
all go into the landfill?
Yes.
Did we have 10
Well, not all, but mostly.
fully
yes.
loaded trucks?
No, it was a huge issue. Look, in the Aglanca Carnival, they actually made an effort, and when the crews came out to clean up, they did collect the cans separately because Aglanca is really trying to make an effort towards recycling
Yes.
and using a pay-as-you-throw system. But the point is that if there was forethought in it, you would have had the bins already strategically positioned so that people would not throw things on the ground. Because what I didn't understand, what really made me feel very bad, was that I took a bag, I took a roll of bags of PMD so that people could throw their cans in. And when I opened it in front of us, our neighboring families and the children, they would come and throw it in the bag. If there was a
Yes,
there
if
was
the
a
bags are there.
responsibility. If the bags,
this is
they would have
exactly
done
what's
it there.
happened in Sweden.
Yes.
Post concert, more than 10,000 people. We were there. There was not one piece of rubbish on the floor because there were
was
people. It was a
available
line,
disposal.
or there was a line of people holding bags, exactly as you said, and everybody put their rubbish in.
I remember going to Serbia to a concert, and you had people that had boxes on their backs, and they said that we are the walking recycling bin, so that people could put in their bins.
Why can't we do that?
I've seen many good ideas, and every single time that I'm telling people that, you know, we should be doing something about available recycling, I have to tell you that the only ones that actually responded well to this was Comic-Con, which actually makes a big effort towards recycling, and
Bravo, Comic-Con.
also they collect the cans separately and give them to Cans for Kids.
Excellent.
Which is very important because you've got an NGO that has been around for 30 years that is trying to collect cans, selling them, and the profits going directly
And
to
Rosie
the
actually
Makarios hospital. And when I
Yes.
say profits, this is like 90% of the money. There's very little money being used for anything else because it's volunteer work.
Yes.
I mean, they have a car, so it's the petrol and, you know, the maintenance of the machinery, and
Yes.
that's basically it. So, but I have to be real, and this is what happens. I mean, there's a small amount of money that needs to go in infrastructure.
Yes.
But other than that, everybody else is doing things voluntarily. And it's extremely important to see these kind of initiatives being helped by governments, by NGOs, by companies. So if there's anybody out there that is actually listening right now and can help, it's just 150 euros to buy the bin for life, to have it in your infrastructure, in your facilities, and then the NGO just comes and empties it out as often as you need to. And that's basically it. You're offering 150 euros because it's a metal bin. It's a very specific thing so that people can't just go and you know, steal the cans. And you're offering something towards money going towards cancer kids.
I understand that part, but how can we get to the stage before
Which is?
the carnival so that we can have everything prepared and we don't
The municipality
we clean it up.
needs to invest in making sure that they have enough bins to place when they're doing their carnival. And this is for all the municipalities. I mean, you've got 5-7 municipalities that are doing this, and villages as well, because it's picking up, and they're basically everybody's doing a regional carnival. And okay, I don't understand the logic. I would never throw anything on the ground. It's outside my personal culture.
Yes.
But if kids are going to be using these sprays, which is a real big hazard, and I hate spray cans, but if they are going to be using it, you need to provide them with bins. And the best is to have at least a PMD bin and a regular bin. It's less paper, it's mostly the plastic that really needs to get recycled, and at the end of the day you can actually sort it from the bins. If you've got the PMD, which is the biggest bulk of what's going on, you can check out, you can sift through
If
the
I'm
bins
still here
for
next year
garbage.
at the same time, we definitely need to try and address this
It's
in
just
good
it's
time to see if
some
we can get
forethought. And to be honest, even if they
volunteers.
don't have the bins, just placing one of these bags for PMD, which is totally recognizable by anybody that is working around.
Yes.
You place one of these PMD bin bags and a regular bin bag. You place them together, though. I mean, I laugh every time that I go into an area where they have the recycling bins further away from the regular bins, because that doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
If I've got something to throw away, I need all the bins in one place so that I can actually, distribute between them. And it just shows that there is no forethought being put in on promoting recycling, which is why the government is supposedly promoting this. It's going to table this legislation that demands recycling at the source. So everybody will be forced to recycle one way or another. There is going to be resistance, especially from people that refuse to realize that this is the future and there is a benefit towards this. But there is no other way that you can bring a change. I mean, we've been trying to bring volunteering recycling for the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, I remember it since I was in university, all the efforts of making programs with the LIFE program from the EU. It was one of the first things that were funded actually from the EU, even pre-entry to towards us being a member of the EU. And we still haven't managed so many years after to convince people that this is the way to go. So let's impose it and start working on how we're going to make it as easy as possible for people to actually do this.
We've got to move to the next subject, and that's Corona.
Ooh.
I see Corona as being the biggest excuse for cancelling flights, racist attacks, business decisions, and a general hostility. A Chinese man was beaten in London. We've had so many racist attacks. I've heard them myself. El Al today cancelled flights to Cyprus. EasyJet, British Airways, Ryanair have all changed and reduced their flights. And I'm wondering, what is Cyprus going to do to ensure safety and to eliminate any kind of racist attacks?
Okay, well, first of all, I'll just tell you my personal opinion that it's almost impossible to be able to fully contain something like this. And I think that the biggest mistake that any government has done up to now is to try to pretend that they can. Yes. There are limited things at the end of the day that you can do. On the other hand, if you're going to the drastic measure of, for instance, closing down the crossings between the occupied areas and the free areas because you're supposedly trying to protect the populace from the coronavirus, at least have the decency to do it properly. They closed down 3 barricades, left 4 open, and there was no sort of screening of the people that were crossing through there.
That's why
it didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense.
They
coming into the airports, there was absolutely nothing. No screening, no question, absolutely nothing.
Which is, I mean, they really turned this thing into a political fiasco, in my understanding, simply because, again, we're talking about lack of forethought and lack of a strategic plan. I mean, we have gone through similar frights. I distinctly remember during the period that we were going to have the bird flu because of all the migratory birds. We had the pig flu, and all that was only last year, with all the pigs being killed in China and people being afraid of the virus being transported one way or another. We had the SARS scare.
Yes.
We even had the man-made scares where supposedly there was going to be a bio attack at some point. It just seems like we just go through motions and we never actually sit down to make a proper plan. We got the first we got the first indication that there might be a pandemic happening 2 weeks ago. And now we're talking on like 2 weeks and 2 days later, we still don't have a solid plan. I mean, we might already have people that are carriers right now, especially with a virus that it seems has a 14-day incubation period.
Yes.
If you're going to take some measures, doesn't it make sense to actually see what they are? I mean, people are talking about a restricted area for possible patients, since we have no patients yet. in the snowed-in areas on the Taurus Mountain. How do you take a person that is actually going to have a really severe cold, and with the kind of symptoms that are probably showing on people that are already like their health is one way or another
Is that for someone
affected.
who's already showing symptoms
Yes.
that they were going to
Somebody
take them
that has
there?
somebody that has been diagnosed, and usually you're going to get people that are diagnosed after they have some sort of symptom. I mean,
Are they
I
not
don't
going to
think
be going to hospital?
they're going to take them to, well, that's what we're hearing. I don't know if they've changed their mind now, but they were going to take them to the presidential resort in the Troodos Mountains, which is basically in the snowed areas of Troodos right now, one of the highest peaks. The initial idea was that they were going to use the hospital in Giberunda, because it's also a sanatorium, and they already have facilities for people with tuberculosis. But there were demands from the local authorities not to do such a thing because they believed that it would affect their tourism. And our government succumbed, what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, to this demand, and they decided, okay, I'll take them to my house, said the president, as if that's going to be some sort of facility to take sick people and give them the treatment that they need. It just seems like everything is, again, an afterthought. People are panicking. They're just making erratic decisions. I mean,
I just want to go back to this house.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, I don't know his house.
It's a presidential residence that, okay, these are
How
houses.
many rooms has he got? What facilities does he have? Hospitalization, drips?
There are government mansions on the Troodos Mountain.
Yes.
There are 24, if I'm not mistaken. Various are allocated already to foundations or people or whatever, and there might be, I think, half of them are available for as a resort. These were built by the British when we were still part of the empire, because it was very difficult for government to continue its work during the summer season in Nicosia. It was devastating. There was no air conditioning. I mean, they couldn't function, the poor people. So basically, government basically transferred up to the Troodos Mountain, and you had the bigwigs living in the stone mansions, and everybody else was living in tent villages, or they were renting in the villages of the mountain. I am not kidding you. This is history. You can look it up. It's very funny when we talk of it like that right now. But this is the reality. So in 1960, these just became government property. And our government at the time thought that it was a great idea to have it as a summer resort for the president, for ministers, for people that were very politically bigwigs at the time. So there are
12 now available?
I'm assuming that it's around 12, because some of them are even derelict and they were fixing them. I don't even know what's available right now or not. But there's always a scandal going on with these houses about who's allocated them. They're talking about a rent of maybe €100 or €150 per year for specific people. I mean, it's a big scandal. If you look it up, like 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big stink about the whole situation. But anyway, I don't think, again, going back to what we were talking about, I don't think that they're the facilities that you want to take really sick people and give them the treatment that they deserve, especially if you're trying to show that you're
Are the doctors going to go up there? Are they going to live there, and the nurses are going to do 24?
I have no idea.
So, I mean, it's just ludicrous.
If the idea is that they're going to second people from the Giberunda hospital to this facility, what are they trying to do? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, all right? Don't make me try to give answers for a government that is not giving answers properly.
I have to ask you,
I've been listening to the media for a really long time now, and I'm not hearing any of the answers that I'm assuming that should have been there.
Because it was impossible to find anything. I researched and I couldn't actually
I have been stating far and wide that we have a health ministry that is not putting any official announcements on its webpage. And I don't know if this is going to seem conspiratorial, but I do believe that this is connected to the fact that they don't want to have any backlash from, what do you call them, from business people. Oh. Because if you actually come out and say, okay, anybody that comes in from these specific countries needs to take a 14-day leave from their work to recluse themselves.
There was an announcement on the aircraft to say if you've
Yesterday?
Yes.
Was it the first time after 2 weeks of this coronavirus going around the whole world? Like
I
haven't had people coming in from these countries
all
up
right,
to now.
Say, for example, if you know, the announcement went in this direction that if you've been to China,
So-and-so
yes, blah, 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 then go into a different line.
Yes.
But of course, nobody went into that line.
It's not just that.
If nobody actually asked. Nobody actually asked. Have you visited the north of Italy, for example?
Yes. There's no screening.
No.
And what happens to people if they actually say, oh, you know what, I can't come into work today. I need to self-contain myself for 14 days. Sorry, see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'd love to do that.
Because I have been trying to get an official press release. I have been trying to get an official statement that says, yes, this is what you're supposed to do, so that we can actually send it to employers, because we have people calling into the party and asking us, so what's going on? I will give you a ludicrous example. A group of people from an international company that has a base in Cyprus, they were in Japan for a conference. They all returned back. It's 20 people. Most of them are Cypriot or European origins, so they came in through the line of European passports or whatever credentials. And there was one person that is of Japanese origin, permanent resident of Cyprus for many years, but she doesn't have a Cypriot or European passport. She was the only one of the 20 batch to actually go through the non-European line. So they actually asked her, where are you coming from? She said, Japan. This was last week, where we already had situations in Japan.
Yes.
So they told her, you need to self-contain yourself for 14 days in your house. The other 19 people that had been to the exact same conference, had been to the exact same places, eaten in the exact same restaurants, were not even given a second thought. So people were calling me up from that company and saying, should we be worried? I mean, and what kind of policy is it? I mean, is this an exclusion because she's actually Japanese, which didn't make any sense? I mean, it wasn't a racial thing.
No.
It was just that the person that was in the line that was checking the third country passports actually did their job, whilst the people that were doing the European passports didn't even decide to check the passports or see if these people had traveled to any of the scary places. Why? Because it was an initiative. There was no official policy from the government. So the company is not demanding from these people to spend 14 days in their homes. They're actually demanding that they come to work properly and do their 8-hour shift as per usual. And if something happens, well, it's not our fault. It's the government that didn't actually make an official request. This is the situation that we have right now. And in all this chaos and in all this craziness, suddenly on Friday they say that we're going to close 3 of the 7 barricades, as if that's going to help anything. And I will not even get into the fact that they closed down the Verinya barricade crossing, which was one of the barricades that Elam, which is the far-right party of Cyprus, have demanded to be closed down since last summer with EDEC. Because it's devastating for the tourist business in Famagusta area. Because
what, the coronavirus?
No, they're bringing politics into the coronavirus in
a
very shady and very amateurish kind of way, if you're asking me. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to take precautions, and whether it's at the barricade crossings or whether it's at the airports or the ports, it has to be everywhere. You have to have a policy.
A policy.
And it doesn't matter. It's if it becomes necessary, if you really can't deal with an ongoing epidemic, or if you're really scared and you believe that you need to close down the barricades, then it doesn't make sense that you only closed 3 out of the 7. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't believe that they should be closed. I believe that it's going to be devastating for whatever efforts towards resolving the Cyprus issue. And I think that it's a very dumb thing for a European member state country to say that we can't deal with the influx of people entering the EU area of the island, so we're going to shut down our borders.
Neither can Viktor
We're
Orban.
not Mexico.
Or Hungary. Neither could Viktor Orban. He said it's only the virus is only seems to be coming from immigrants,
which again doesn't
refugees.
Make any sense whatsoever.
Absolutely.
It's not like they're distinct. What kind of genes you have or whatever.
This closing of the checkpoints the president maintained is for the protection of the whole population. But as I said, my question was why not at the airport? And then, of course, it led to violent scenes. A man pushed a soldier. He admitted it. He was remanded for 2 days, and he's being charged with assault, grievous bodily harm. Grievous bodily harm, for me, it really means something else. Maybe it's different as far as this is concerned. And rioting.
Look, I want to be very clear. I don't believe in violence. I have been participating in demonstrations for the better part of my life. I don't believe in violence. I got my first tear gas attack from the police in 1993. I was 10 years old. I went with my parents to a demonstration, and our police attacked us with tear gas. I hate that. I believe that it's state violence and it shouldn't happen. At the same time, I believe that demonstrators should not be violent themselves. So I don't condone what this person did to the soldier, in the same way that I don't condone what happened with other demonstrators that were attacked by police or soldiers. And this has been not really discussed a lot in the media, because there was a video that was going around and there was a lot of marketing happening and saying, see, it's violent people and blah, and they're again bringing back this sort of us and them situation and making people have to take sides. There is no good guy and bad guy in this situation.
Absolutely
you have
not.
a terrible situation and people responding to it in the way that everybody seems to be fit. I don't condone violence. It shouldn't have happened. But at the same time, our government is basically to blame for what occurred, because they took an erratic decision that was not based on facts and was not based on sane arguments. And the fact that they're trying to spin this and present it in a way that it's not irritates me. I mean, I know that they've been doing it for environmental stuff, but this is, you're entering the core key philosophy of human rights. And I don't know what else. I mean, the other thing that a lot of people are not discussing is the fact that they're not going to be accepting applications for asylum. Our asylum services are refusing to accept anybody that has Iranian descent to submit their application. People that are in Cyprus for I don't know how many years right now are being excluded because they're from Iran. It doesn't make sense at all. And somebody has to put some sanity back, because if we do get an outbreak, and we will, I mean, we're going to be extremely lucky if nothing happens. When we do get an outbreak, and that's when the real panic is going to hit. There's nobody that right now feels that there is a sane group of people that are actually going to deal with this in the correct way.
Well, I want to go on to, because we'll just say that there is going to be a pandemic for the sake of the argument and for the program, because it's almost impossible, as you said, to contain. Various ideas and theories have gone out. Don't shake people's hands. Hygiene is of paramount importance.
These are basic things that we should be doing anyway.
When you think about it, it's so easy to cough. You put up your hand because you don't want to cough everywhere.
You use a handkerchief.
And then you shake hands
with
somebody.
The inside part of your elbow. There's various things that you can do. And the simple fact that people should be doing basic hygiene, should be adhering to basic hygiene rules, is something that shouldn't just come around because of an imminent pandemic. I mean, we went through what was it? A flu in English? We call it grippe alpha in Greek. We went through this 4 years ago, and there were a lot of people that had to stay in their houses because when they were what's the word? Diagnostican?
Diagnosed.
When they were diagnosed with the flu, they had to stay for a week so that they wouldn't be contagious to other people. And I am sure that we lost people that died that were possibly their health was already deteriorating for whatever reason, and we definitely had people that were unfortunately victims of this flu. But there was not this craziness that is happening right now. And to be honest, the biggest problem, I'm assuming, that is making people more scared is that 14-day period that seems to be without any sort of symptom. the interactions that we have in 14 days is extreme.
And that's also been disputed as well by various scientists, that it could actually be 28.
Well, that's where I'm coming back to the basic hygiene. I mean, what can you do to contain something that is invisible? And it's not detected by a temperature taking. No. We're not going to get people to do a blood test while they're entering the country. We're not going to do what do you call it? Like on a one-day blood test for every single person on the island. So we have to stick to what we can do. What we can do is try to protect ourselves. If we have mild symptoms, stay home. I mean, this is what we should be doing if anybody has a flu anyway. Because I don't even want to get a mild flu. If you have your first symptoms, stay in the house, protect yourself, relax. Your body will be able to deal with the virus in a better way anyway. You're not going to contaminate your colleagues. You're not going to contaminate children at the school. Keep your child at home and stay with your child. Spend some quality time if that's the issue. I mean, these are basic things that we should be doing anyway with whatever kind of contagion we have. And not panicking about whether it's a foreigner.
The mask panic was also quite ludicrous because Professor Eli Princevic, Professor of Medicine and Epidemiology at the University of Iowa's College of Medicine, says that there's actually no evidence that wearing masks on healthy people will actually help. If they're not worn correctly, it actually increases
the chance.
The infection possibilities.
It keeps the particles close to the entry area.
It's not only that, and that you keep touching your mask with your hands. I saw so many people.
Yes, because it's uncomfortable.
And you can't actually breathe. Anybody who has glasses, your glasses fog up, so you can't actually see. So that was another
people that
crazy.
Whenever our child, whenever one of the adults in our family is sick, especially when our child was very small, we used to wear the mask because we were trying to contain
if the ill person, particles. Exactly, that's the correct way.
And at the end of the day, you couldn't wear it all day long. No. You were wearing it when you were having interaction with other people, with children. And basically, I think we've said it already many times, the basic sanitary provisions should be enough. And simple alcohol is more than enough. Like, for instance, you're working in an environment right now that is interacted by many people. You're using the same appliances. Just a simple alcohol rub on the keyboard, on the mics, on the surfaces that you're going to be using is more than enough. And you're talking about a €2 bottle at any supermarket. I don't understand this craziness about how the masks and sanitary products were missing from pharmacies. It really doesn't make sense to me. We should all have rubbing alcohol in our houses because you might need it at any point of time, and you don't wait for a pandemic to go out and stock up.
I was going to say, never mind daily.
You can use,
let's say monthly here.
You can use one of those refillable dispensers. You can buy it for like 50 cents at any of these plastic stores or whatever. You put in your alcohol, it evaporates within minutes. You're protected. Everybody else is protected. That's it. I mean, we are all working in environments where we interact with a lot of people. It's basic hygiene.
We've seen an economic fallout, though, Effie, now. Yes. And that is what is worrying me. How are we going to avoid another recession? I don't say it'll be on the size of 2013, but it is extremely concerning, especially with flights not coming in. We're approaching our tourist season.
But this is a worldwide crisis that is about to happen. And the question is whether it's going to be sort of contained or not. For instance, the UN just stopped this world event that was going to happen in New York. 12,000 people from all over the world were going to discuss 25 years after the the Peking Agreement on gender equality. And this is just one of many UN events that were going to be hosted either in New York or in other places of the world. We're going to have, there are all these events happening every single year. At the end of the day, the devastation of flights being cancelled, conferences being cancelled, hotels being cancelled, there is going to be an aftermath. I mean, somebody paid and there's no insurance for these kind of things. Or if there is, it's not covering everything, and they're going to have to repeat the event anyway. So this is
with
one
every
part.
disaster, though, something good can come of it. What is Cyprus going to actually do to
if we were being logical,
be clever about it?
If we were being clever about it, we would be dealing with the coronavirus in a better way. It's trying to make people feel that even if something happens, we are on top of this. We're not taking in water, that we can deal with it. And to be honest, if it's true that this is a virus that is killed by high temperatures, then it means that you're not going to have any effect towards your summer season. It'll be even better if you manage to have minimum outbreaks within the island, which is not where we are right now. Right now, I feel that there is an impending disaster. There's a peak that is going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And I hope that I'm wrong, because I don't want this to happen. But it seems, if there's such a big incubation period, it seems that there is going to be a peak coming up one way or another. Now, the other thing is that we've seen how the detrimental inaction of China initially is one of the reasons that this virus was not contained. So I would have expected the European countries to have come closer and implemented some sort of backup plan. I'm assuming that we do actually have such backup plans, because there are directives towards how you deal with such disasters, and we're supposed to have a backup plan. If it didn't work, if we're looking for the silver lining and something good that should come out of it, we should backtrack everything that went wrong and come up with a plan of how it would have been right, on what the situation should have been, on who would have been responsible to do what, and make sure that we have this plan ready to be implemented as soon as something like this comes around again, or if there is going to be a peak, as it's universally expected to be in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
There's nothing else. I mean, how many times do we have to talk about foresight and about forethought in how we deal with anything that happens on the island, and especially this thing with the barricades? What kind of, genius thought that it would be a great idea to throw in the Cyprus problem on a health issue?
When do the 7 days? I believe it was a 7-day
a period of the
period.
Well, it's supposed to be this running week. I'm not even sure how it's going to be dealt with.
Let's see if by Friday they go down. This morning, a Syrian man was arrested while trying to help 101 people from Syria to Cyprus by boat from Turkey. There were 43 minors, 4 pregnant women. They all paid 4,000 euros each. Well, they're not refugees.
Well, there are many of them that are refugees. They've been working in Turkey for years now, trying to make up that kind of money. We've seen this happen many times in either people that are actually from Syria, or people that actually come from other countries of the Middle East or North Africa, and they travel through Turkey, trying to be brought in with these traffickers that are really taking advantage of all these people in Jordan, in Syria, in Turkey, in Lebanon right now, because these are the main areas where people are being transported here and there. And there was also the other issue where you had people that after Erdogan came out and said that, we're not going to stop you, suddenly, tried to find a way to come through. Now, I'm not sure how exacerbated the amounts are, because it really does seem extreme that a family of 2-3 people would be able to come up with that sort of money to be able to travel to come through. I have heard of situations, though, where they have come up with the money and they have tried to bring over one family member with the hope that through the Dublin agreement, where you have family reunification, that they would be able to bring the rest of the family through in a more official way, where you didn't need to use traffickers. Now, at the end of the day, I just want to say this. This is a huge crisis, a human crisis that is happening right now. You've got people that are in devastated areas. We know that war is happening. We know that they need to be taken to a safe haven. But as Europe, we're not dealing with it well. We're expecting the external fronts to be able to deal with this massive influx of people, of humanity, and that's not how it works. But we don't want to go back to the situation where you had dead children washing up on your shores, where you had dead people washing up on your shores, because it's not just about the age group. It's about people so desperate for something better than what they have right now that are risking dinghies that look, incapable of actually carrying 20 people and are carrying 50 people to take the risk of trying to get a better life.
It's also horrendous to see Greek police actually shooting.
Well, I didn't see any shooting. Erdogan came out and said that they shot 2 people, and this has been
not
vehemently...
people, but they were shooting in the vicinity, very close to the boat, to the dinghy.
You're talking about the boat. Yes, I actually heard about how they're trying to see who those people were, because that was illegal, and they're trying to arrest them.
I thought that from a humane perspective, that's absolutely just reprehensible.
No, it's incomprehensible, and I know that some circles are trying to connect the coronavirus to, the influx of Syrian people coming through, but I'll just remind people that every single migrant or refugee, because we have had migrants that have tried to come through as possible refugees, so you've got both. Anybody that comes through and is trying to claim asylum, and has been newly arrived on the island. I'm not talking about the other group that come on the island as students and then 4 or 5 years later they decided they want to do an asylum seeker application. That's a different group. Yes. I'm talking about people that are newly arrived on the island.
I'm glad you clarified that, because there are very different groups of migrants.
And people need to
immigrants
to be
and refugees, and they are all quite different.
But you do get
they're all grouped together somehow.
Yes. Yeah, but they shouldn't, because there is a very clear distinction on who has the right to have an asylum and who doesn't.
Right.
What we don't have is the correct facilities to be able to take care of these people for a short period of time.
It's
a very bad facility. It's very restrained. How can I say? I mean, they can only take up a specific number of people, and right now we're getting influxes. They have been talking about setting up more areas, but that hasn't happened. They've been talking about bringing in people to help with the asylum services. That hasn't happened. I mean, we have people that are Syrian and have been waiting for some sort of protection status, if not full asylum, for 3 to 5 years. That's incomprehensible. How can people that are, that they're from Syria, you have the information that you need, and you're not making a decision? Why? Because there's a backlog of applications. We have people that have been in Cyprus for 15 to 20 years from countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, or whatever, and no processing of their papers has been done because we're hoping that the situation will be better and we can send them back, which is almost incomprehensible to do to a family that has children that were born and raised here and have never lived under a country that has Sharia law, and especially if there are daughters in that family. There is a very clear distinction on how you should be treating people from specific regions.
Effie, there's no question that there is a problem. How does one, though, it seems almost impossible to fix the situation. I understand Cyprus can't handle any more.
No,
more
that's
people.
Not the issue. Right now, what Cyprus is really not handling well is the fact that they're not doing a speedy processing. So if you've got migrants that are coming through, they can get a visa application to work for up to 5 years. And then they have to return to the country. This is the system as it is now. There are exceptions for people that are working with elderly, for people that their employees really have value and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But most of these people that are coming for manual labor work, this is the situation, right? So you've got somebody that has 5 years as an official migrant, then puts in an application as an asylum seeker and gets another 5 years extension just because of the backlog. People are going to take advantage of that system. And when I say 5 years, it's 5 years for the application and then another 3 years until the court actually hears your appeal when you're going to be when you're going to be rejected, and there's a whole process there. And then suddenly you have people that have been living there here for 15, 20 years, and you don't know what to do with them because maybe you can't send them back, or maybe when that period finishes, they disappear. So you really can't find them to decide how you're going to deal with them. So you have this situation, and then you've got people that are your neighbors, because Syria is our neighbor. This is a country that we have traditionally had commerce with, trades with, cultural interaction with. And you're not making sure that these people get the status that they need so they can actually work here, so they can actually feed their families, so they can actually, maybe when the future is going to be brighter for Syria, if they return back home, they'll be able to be your business partners. They will be able to be your help in that area, because I have to be honest with you, a lot of people are already looking forward to what's going to happen with rebuilding Syria. There's going to be a lot of money in that for a lot of companies and for a lot of industries. And nobody is thinking that if right now we manage to work with people that are from these regions, who now need us, who now need our help, tomorrow, because of their knowledge, because of their patriotic instinct, because of the fact that it's going to be an opportunity for them as well, they will be, a portion of them will be moving back to that country, and we will be able to have interactions, and we will be able to have the good ethical benefit of actually being one of the countries that actually helped and didn't consider them to be just a nuisance or locusts or wherever else it is that I'm reading on Facebook and I want to puke. I have been listening and I have been reading things that really don't make sense to me. So
it is
if
sickening.
we were processing quickly, we wouldn't have this problem of people taking advantage of us.
Surely, Effie, that is not such an insurmountable problem.
No, it's huge.
We seem to have a lot of lawyers. We do have judges.
Yes.
Why is it not possible to put up? Maybe this is something I should have put up to Stephanie Shailo to ask her from Yuklan. Why is it not possible to set up for processing only a court?
You want my real answer? What I believe?
Yes.
I think that there are so many people making money out of this racket that there is nobody that really wants it to work well. There is money to be made out of human destitution and out of human desperation.
Can you expand on that? How is someone going to make money?
You've got lawyers that manage to squeeze money out of people that can barely make a living. You've got public officials that should be speedily going through processes that are not allowed to give out their reports. I mean, you've got files that are aging, are being rat-eaten before they're actually processed. You've got EASO that has supposedly come to the island to help, but they haven't managed to keep any of their employees for more than 6 months to 1 year. So every single time they're training new people, so there's no actual help being given to the asylum services. But you want my biggest complaint? I have the sneaky suspicion that various governments, not just this government, previous governments as well, have not wanted to have an efficient system on asylum seekers, because they fear that if there is an efficient system, more people will choose to come to Cyprus for asylum, which doesn't make sense, because there isn't an infinite resource for these people to be able to be active on the island. But if you were efficient, and if you didn't have all these third country individuals that are trying to take advantage of your asylum seeker system, maybe we would be able to use asylum seekers, real asylum seekers, as the help that we need. Because let's be honest, we need people to work in specific businesses, in specific areas, and it would make much more sense to have people that you have some sort of affiliation with, instead of trying to bring them from the other part of the world. Relocating people that maybe don't even know your language or pretend to know enough English to be able to get by, and then they arrive in Cyprus and they don't know anything. And you're stuck with these people because of the situation that we have, where families that just need somebody to help them in the house with their elderly relatives are having to pay like €1,000, 1,200 euros as a deposit to bring somebody that they have never met before from a third country. And then if it doesn't work out, they have to pay for their ticket to send them back. I mean, it's an erratic, silly situation.
Yes.
When I could have had somebody that is living on the island, working for the household, making sure that my elderly person is comfortable, that they have food, that they have eaten their, they have actually eaten their food, they've taken their medicine, that they live in a clean house, and then they have some private time as well. Because socially, there is a big problem right now with a lot of our elderly being trapped with a person that they can't communicate with in their own homes. This is a situation that we have created. There could have been a much better situation if we all worked together and were more efficient in the work being done.
Do you see enough collaboration between the government and the universities to filter out all these students?
No.
I personally even know of students who don't even know where the university is.
The Ministry of Interior, the Minister of Interior himself has come out 3 or 4 weeks ago and said that beware, owners of these shabby universities, that we're onto you. Yeah, right. Like it took 25 years for the government to get onto the fact that there's a racket happening, where people are registering to study and they're never in classes and they're working, whether legally or illegally. There is no real backbone to the efforts to clamp down on this, and that's the mere fact.
Does the municipality have a record, each municipality, of every citizen in its municipality?
They should, but they don't. Nobody really thinks that this is an important aspect of their work. If you ask me, it's the first aspect of their work, because I would have liked, if I was a mayor, I would like to know if I have people that are living in my area that are destitute. I would like to know if I have elderly people that have nobody to take care of them. I would like to know if there are children that are returning from school and there is no parent to look after them because both parents are working, or it's a single parent and they have no other resources. So you've got like small children that are in their house alone. And I am not just making this out of fantasy. I am talking about specific situations that have happened. We have had a migrant woman murdered by her estranged husband, with 3 children being in the house. And everybody was shocked and awed when it was a situation that was reported to the authorities, when it was a situation that could have been dealt with if we had actually had shelters, and if we didn't discriminate between Cypriots and non-Cypriots on how we dealt with violence within the family, for instance. We have had accidents, work-related accidents with migrants that have been pushed under the carpet. Why? Why should I have an employee that brought detrimental harm to his worker be protected by a system that says, oh, we don't want to get a bad name internationally? That doesn't make sense. You would get a good name if you're actually clamping down, if you were ensuring that people that are working had the same access to safety, the same access to their union rights. That's the only way that you can combat black labor or cheaper labor, and you've got people that are losing their jobs because they get somebody that does supposedly the same work for half the amount. These are the kind of things that you protect your society. But nobody is really trying to save these things. Nobody's trying to bring a balance back so that people can actually make enough money to live by. And at the same time, you don't get super profits from specific small percentage of the population that are taking advantage of all the rest.
I've been asked in a message on Facebook, the person has asked to remain anonymous, why I don't bring the opposition.
That's a great idea.
And I'd like to reiterate that the microphone is here for anybody who actually accepts my invitation, and the invitation has been extended to all these people on numerous and countless times, and I'm not going to beg somebody to actually come and offer their viewpoint. So that is my answer anybody from any opposing parties or who doesn't concur with what Effie has to say. You are most welcome to be in touch with me and say that you'd like to come and be on the program if you're from an opposing party.
If you want my opinion, I think that it's a great opportunity to say that you're one of the few programs on the island that is actually for English speakers. Most of these debates are happening every single day on the radio.
Yes.
These are comments that are being made by politicians within the government and in the opposition with whatever argument, depending on what we're talking about. The point is that nobody seems to take seriously the need for these discussions to happen in English as well. And I really wish that I would see the CYBC taking more. I mean, your program is a breath of fresh air.
Thank you,
Rosie Haralam was doing it before you for many years as well. Her efforts to try and bring people that could explain in English things that are happening. It was one of the few things that people could watch. And now with Facebook, with it being uploaded, it means that people actually have the chance to listen to it at their own opportune time. I just wish that more was being done. There are so many people out there, permanent residents of Cyprus, that want to get the
politicians who say that they can't come and speak, or their chief of police, or this one or that one, who says to me that they can't speak in English, they're not prepared to speak in English. My question always goes back, and I always say it doesn't matter if there's a grammatical mistake.
It's about the information
but it's about the information that's going out. If you don't have anything to be frightened of, and you're simply trying to express yourself, I'm here to actually help in this situation. And my further question is, what happens when you, as somebody in an authoritative position, has to go out and speak to somebody in the big wide world outside little Greece and Cyprus, where
which they do.
They have to
they actually covet
another
the
language,
the international conferences.
Exactly,
and
another language apart from Greek. So anyway, sorry, Effie, but I did have to say that because it's not that I don't invite other people to come, but they're not prepared to come.
I'm actually hoping that someday somebody will decide to come specifically because of something that I said, and finally we'll be able to have a debate.
Yes, they're welcome to come and you can debate it, the two of you here. It's not a problem.
Maybe
at
we
all.
should start being more extreme in the positions that we're putting out on the air.
Well,
provoke a reaction.
We have to be honest, I think, and truthful. It's part of being ethical. And every day I do check under the car. So
you're not wrong to do that. You know, actually, we should have said this before. Today there was a heinous attack against the Cyprus Times in Limassol. There was a bomb on their offices.
I did start a program like that.
It's disgusting. I mean, people are allowed to their opinion, and the media are the safeguard. They're the fourth estate, and they're the safeguard of people to be able to state their opinions in as clear way as possible. And people are already talking about the fact that the Cyprus Times were really delving into organized crime and into trying to investigate further than what any older media would right now, and there seems to be a connection there. So I really want to say we should be supporting media, and especially journalists that are trying to get the message out there.
We're not going to be silenced. Effie, once again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me,
thank you
for people that were watching and listening in.
Effie Xanthou. 10 minutes to 2, and we're going to close today's program with Weber, the clarinet and string quartet. Thank you for watching.